Stress Midwest podcast. We're in season 4 right now, doing soccer entrepreneurship season. This episode, we are lucky enough to be joined by Nick Manzoni of SportsLab360. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I am good, man. I'm doing good. It's a really rainy, kind of gloomy day here in KC. Kind of a bummer, but it's like 85, so it's humid as all heck.
There you go. Yeah.
Well,
It's
I hear you're in a different location than Colorado, right?
I'm doing about 6 or 7 weeks in Seattle. Just kind of working remote. Figured I hadn't made it up to the Pacific Northwest just about ever. So got up here a few days ago, and yeah, definitely kind of same as Kansas City right now. Just a bunch of clouds, and keeps me inside working at least. So works out.
Yeah, now I hear the Pacific Northwest is their rain season, where it's just a lot of rain. How's it been since you've been there? I know it's only been a couple days.
Honestly, not bad. It's the first 3 days were like 70, sunny, perfect. And then I don't know, the next couple of weeks look promising. We beat like the 110-degree heat wave that was going on a couple of weeks ago. So I think if we would have come a couple months earlier or a couple months later, it would have been rain pretty much every day. But I think it might get a little bit drier now, but we'll find out.
All right. Well, so Nick, I was trying to think about how we met at first. I know that I was in my club days, so it was still it's been a while. I know we have some mutual friends where you played college soccer, but do you remember by chance?
Yeah, I'm trying to think who it was that connected us, but it was, I think, one of my friends, from Drake, where I played, who I think put me in touch with you maybe like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like right when the idea was, just literally just an idea. And then, yeah, we met up at Panera on the Plaza, I think. And I can't remember, I think maybe I had like a few modules built at that time, right? I don't know, maybe 10 or 11. But it was very much, not really ready for anybody to throw money into it. So yeah, I think we chatted for a good hour or two there. And you were with, God, who was that? Like Kansas City Soccer Club at the time?
Yep.
Are they still around?
No, they fell through maybe 2018, 2019, right
Okay.
before
Gotcha.
I left, right before it happened. Just
Okay.
because I took over as a high school coach.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say, because then since then, yeah, I mean you've been around the block as far as obviously no stress, but then U.S. soccer stuff, high school stuff, and I would assume some other clubs. I think sporting stuff probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was probably one of the first 5 or 6 meetings that I had with Sports Lab. So it was a blast from the past.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to think. It probably was Alec Bartlett or Wiggum. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was Bartlett actually.
Yeah, and then
Bartlett mentioned, yeah, he's like, hey, this guy's kind of a rapper and kind of something else. I'm gonna put you guys in touch. I was like, sweet.
Man, yeah, that was a crazy time for me. And
Oh,
then
yeah,
Darren was your goalie, right, McLeod?
Yeah, yep.
Yep.
Darren still like stays pretty involved. He's been crazy helpful the last probably 6 or 7 months. I don't have background goalkeeping, so for all of our goalkeeping modules, which we're trying to build a bigger library, he's jumped in.
Helping you out.
Very reluctant to take any money, even if I try to force on him, but like super helpful. And have been able to finally get some good goalkeeper content out there too. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, Darren's a pretty good friend of mine now, and he's one of the best people that I know, especially as connected as he is, and just how nice and how willing he is to help people. You don't find too many guys like him.
Absolutely.
So
100%. Yeah.
So Nick, let's kind of talk about just about you. Talk to me about your soccer background. Kind of how did you get into it? What was the highest level you played? And what was it that made you realize it was the end and you were going to hang up the cleats and then start your next endeavor?
Yeah, good question. So I kind of grew up in a Chicago suburb and then moved to Minnesota, kind of halfway through my childhood. So I think it was kind of the same reason that most people get thrown in. My parents, saw probably something for a soccer tryout or soccer camp, whatever it was. So probably around when I was 3 or 4, slowly kind of got into the mix. Had one older brother, he played as well, so we were always kicking it around in the backyard and things like that. Moved to Minnesota when I was 11 or 12, and probably around that time is when, and I think it's probably for most players who are trying to be a little bit more serious about it, became more of a priority, and really kind of started to jump into it, and to spend 3 hours a day on soccer.com and YouTube, and the game.
Yeah.
Um,
Circling the girl
and
sport magazines.
Yep, exactly. Just yeah, borderline obsession, and
Yeah.
played for MTA in Minnesota for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and then had a couple Minnesota guys who were going to Drake to play, and I basically ended up taking a gap year after high school, to do some rehab basically for my leg, and kind of by that point I had met with the Drake coach, and he was kind of interested in bringing me on, and then started, I think, 2013 at Drake. Played 4 years, redshirted my first year, and overall it was, I think probably around sophomore year was kind of when I realized, hey, I've had a good run, but
Yeah, this
I'm
is
not going to
probably
go
gonna
pro.
be- Yeah.
And then the next couple years finished strong with college, and since then it was kind of a, if somebody calls me up for a men's league or anything like that, I'll jump in, but haven't really. I've joined a couple leagues here and there, but always good to play. But that was kind of the point where I realized I was hanging them up. I was lucky too, with probably throughout high school, maybe from around the time I was like 14 or 15, I started coaching pretty early on. So I kind of had both sides. And that way, when I did, move into college and then post college, I was able to get a little bit of a head start just from a coaching standpoint. So.
Okay. Yeah, I remember when we first met. I remember you kind of touched on it. You're very early on with just a few modules, and I remember going through it and being really impressed because at that same time, in my club atmosphere, I was trying to get my kids to watch soccer on TV, and every
Mhm.
month I made them submit two reports. They had to watch two different matches, and one match they had to follow the person that played their position and just write what runs they were doing, how often they were on the ball, were they defending mostly, attacking, whatever it was. And then the other one was just give me a summary of the game. Like, what did you see? What were some of the trends? What were, whatever. And I can remember I was doing that. Then you came to me about SportsLab360, and I'm giving it to my kids, and the parents are fighting me because they're like, my kid has all this homework, and then you're making him watch two games on top of that and study, do some other stuff. And I'm like, what? I was like,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird, but okay. So I was getting faced with so much backlash trying to have them watch the game and study just like they study anything else. So before we kind of get into your idea, what were you like as a player? Were you someone that watched the game and couldn't get enough of it? Were you out there doing extra touches once training was done, going up there on the field and
Mhm.
working on some free kicks? What kind of player were you like outside of training when you had to be there?
Are you a student that's struggling a little bit with the hybrid and virtual learning and looking to get just a little more help academically? Or are you a parent that has a child who's struggling to keep that same level of discipline and rigor that they had in the classroom at home? If any of these apply to you, check out No Stress Midwest Education, an academic tutoring service where we offer both in-person and virtual tutoring. One of the things that separates us from others is that all of our tutors are board certified educators in Kansas and Missouri in a variety of specialty topics and familiar with the latest curriculum in school districts around the metro area. We are passionate about helping students achieve their goals in the classroom and also committed to helping students build the necessary skills and tools they will need in the future to succeed on their own. Our team follows the latest guidelines from the CDC. We require masks for all in-person tutoring to protect both the student and the tutor. Our tutors will either travel to your home or meet at a predetermined location to conduct all in-person tutoring sessions. All we need is a space for learning, and we're ready to go. At No Stress Midwest, we truly believe in developing the well-rounded student athlete. No Stress Midwest does not tell you what to think, but teaches you how to think. No Stress Midwest Education, an academic tutoring service. For more information, visit www.nostressmidwest.com/education.
I would say probably from when I made the move to Minnesota when I was 11 or 12, that's when, I kind of kicked it into another gear as far as trying to, carve out hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, just at home every day, working on, whatever it is that I thought I needed to work on, like any 12-year-old or, I'm sure even when I was 15, if I would have allotted, the hours that I worked on free kicks to, to doing other stuff, probably would have turned out a little bit better. But that was kind of how I approached it. I mean, there were plenty of summers where me and there was a good friend from club soccer that we'd go out pretty much every morning at 7 or 8 a.m. and, spend a couple hours at the field training and doing things like that. And I think a lot of those sessions we started to learn a little bit more about like how to train, because that's obviously such a big thing there's plenty of kids out there in the US and other countries that are willing to spend 2 hours, whatever it is, a day to train on their own outside of training. But looking back to my days, thinking about the stuff that I was doing, it was pretty much me making it up, or maybe at best I'm going on YouTube and looking at some random video that might as well be a 15-year-old kid making it up. So, setting up like cones and stuff like that in my yard and doing snake dribble, like things like that, where you kind of look back on it and you're like, it's not making me worse. It's probably making me a little bit better, but could it have been 10 times more efficient? Probably.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it was always out there and trying to get extra touches, as much as possible. And a lot of it, hours juggling in the driveway and things like that, which is obviously a good thing. But yeah, so that was, not to jump into the sports lab piece, but yeah, that's another kind of aspect of how it started was, let's see if we can be more efficient about things.
Yeah, I would have loved to have something like that as a kid, because when I was in high school, YouTube was like just becoming a thing. You couldn't spend hours on YouTube because I don't think there was enough stuff on there yet. And I can remember every day trying to juggle outside to get better, because I was told like in order to make varsity, you had to juggle it 100 times. It was just some kid lying to me, but I was like, oh crap, I gotta do this. And I can remember we moved into a house, and my backyard, my mom, like, we got shrubs. They're like little mini trees that grew into bigger trees. But we had that back there. And my yard was the perfect 3v3 up to 5v5 field. So like every day after school, and I hope my mom's doesn't listen to the podcast, but every day after school, we would have tournaments at my house, and my mom wouldn't come home until like 6. So right after school, we'd have like 20, 30 people come over. Everyone comes to my backyard, and it's like a fight club of 3v3 up to 4v4. And I can just remember how much fun and how good I got, because every day, like, sure, we weren't working on anything specific. We were just playing and getting touches on the ball. And I think ultimately that's what it kind of comes down to get better, is getting those 1,000 touches a day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, looking back on it too, the area I grew up in, like, soccer was big, but it wasn't like there's, a group of like 8 to 10 guys that I could call out and be like, hey, let's come play consistently, whether it's park, my house, whatever. And there really wasn't too much pickup. I mean, luckily when you're at a decent club, like you're going to be training 4 or 5 times a week, but outside of that, I did I probably miss out on a good amount of 3, 4, whatever it is. And that's, funny enough, as I've been in Seattle for 3 days, that's one of the first things I noticed was took a bike ride, no more than 5 or 6 miles a couple days ago, and must have biked by like 3 or 4 parks that had a bunch of people playing pickup in them. So
Oh,
that
that's
was good to
cool.
see. Yeah,
That's
there's
cool.
not. Yeah, granted, I was in the suburbs of Minnesota, so you can't expect too much. But it's always going to a new city and seeing more people out year after year is always
Yeah,
a great feeling. So
because that wasn't like that when I was a kid. You didn't drive by any park and see kids playing pickup. That just
yeah, exactly.
was not a thing.
And I honestly, after 2026 when the World Cup's here, I think that will be like a pretty much perfect time where
Yep.
we're building up slowly, for a while, and it seems like we should be far enough down the track of like that will be something that hopefully takes us a little bit more off as far as
Yeah.
just getting it out there. But
Yeah, just like they have basketball courts at these parks, make some cage soccer courts. Um, and let's just have people play. I know
yep,
everyone has a futsal ball or a regular ball. You don't even need a futsal ball. But I think it's just having fields there for people to use. And if
yep,
you build it, they'll come.
yeah, exactly. There's actually one in Denver that we played at a few months ago, pretty consistently. That was I think it was the U.S. Soccer Foundation court, and it was like this perfect 44 5v5 futsal court. We'd go out every week. It
Yeah.
was super easy. No one was ever on it. And yeah, like those getting like a little more, and I don't know what sort of like apps are out there or anything for pickup. I'm sure there's some good ones, but that would be, a really cool thing to watch grow, which I think it will. Just
Yeah.
like everything will take time.
Yeah. Well, all right, Nick, let's kind of jump now into why you're on the show. And it's not because you're a friend of mine. That's just one of the perks. But you started a business, SportsLab360, and we've kind of went around the circle in our earlier talks of what it is. But talk to us. What is SportsLab360? How did the idea come about? And what is it that your business does? And then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah. So basically, it's an online platform made up of individual modules, and modules can focus on anything from like building out from the back, switching play, just any kind of like tactically related principle. And module takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes to complete. There's a video portion, like an interactive kind of like 3D animated lesson portion where the players work through different decisions that they're seeing on the screen, and they select, all right, based on the context, which option would be best. And then there's a quiz portion at the end. So basically, it's a collection of all these modules, and a coach or a club or an individual player will subscribe. And when they subscribe, basically a coach will use it to make assignments to their players, to sort of supplement what they're working on in training. So like if you're coaching your high school team, let's say you struggled with building out from the back, in the game last week, you'd go on to SportsLab360, look up the module building out from the back. You can kind of go through it as a coach and put like custom notes in and different things like that, if there's anything you want to add in. And then you kind of create the assignment, your players get notified, they take 10, 15 minutes to work through it. And then as the coach, you can obviously like see how they're scoring. You can like jump into their individual quizzes and kind of see if there's any like micro topics that any certain player is struggling with. So it's, in that sense, then it's also not just a player development tool, but also a tool that helps coaches kind of more quickly, especially in high school, more quickly sort of identify different areas that might need some development from a tactical standpoint. And then there's like a session plan library as well that coaches can tap into for that. So, the way it started, kind of like what I was mentioning earlier, being a player and then also a coach, there was just nothing. I mean, there was literally nothing for a player to go to if they wanted to become a smarter and more intelligent player.
Right.
Google, YouTube, maybe there's maybe some books out there for players, but at the youth level, not really. So the goal was like, there's clearly a void here. Soccer IQ is a buzzword that everybody throws out, and a lot of clubs are doing a good job, and then a lot of them are kind of just throwing it out there. Oh, we value soccer IQ, and it's like, all right, cool, like that's good, but what are you doing
Yeah.
to
What are you
address it?
doing to value it?
Yeah. And when coaches have, X amount of hours with their players each week, there's obviously just limitations there. And when you have players who just have all these different approaches to the game and all these different mindsets and levels, we wanted to create just a really practical, easy to use tool that helps align players and bring them up, as far as their kind of tactical awareness and kind of game intelligence overall. So it was just, let's empower the players through giving them a resource to learn the game, to kind of put it simply there.
Okay. And so we talked about how the idea came about. When did you start the business, and how has it progressed from then to now, or when we first met to now? How has it progressed, or what obstacles are you seeing that you just didn't know or didn't expect, and how are you kind of getting through those?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we started it originally. It was me and a good. There's like a competition through the Entrepreneurship Center.
Hey, wait,
I think going into our
sorry.
senior year.
You broke up real quick.
Connection.
Yeah,
Hey,
you
good.
broke up real quick. So how did it start, or when did
Yeah.
it start?
Yeah. So going into my senior year at Drake, me and my business partner at the time heard about a pitch competition that was going on to, earn a little bit of seed money to start a business. And I don't know, the idea, like I said, was something that was just dormant in my mind for a few years. And once I heard about the opportunity to start it up, and it was kind of reason enough to go present an idea and see if, we were able to get some money to start it. So we pitched it, got some funding, and then and by funding, it was, it was enough to get started, but it wasn't anything too crazy.
Right.
But then there was like a summer program that we went through to start to build it. And, just really, we had nothing at that point. So it was just figuring out how we're going to market it. Is it more of a club, coach, individual piece? And so we kind of worked through that summer. And then I would say when we met, it was probably about a year and a half after we started it. And I kind of put that in quotes just because, the first year we were seniors in college, there was some urgency, but we were
Right.
seniors in college, like to put it bluntly. So we were working on it. But once we graduated, my business partner left, and then it was kind of just me. And it was like, all right, well, have to make a living, have to build this thing up. We were maybe 80% of the way there as far as what it needed to be market ready. So that's actually when I took a job at US Soccer in Chicago, for 6 months to have some steady flow of income, and then just worked on Sports Lab kind of at night, in the mornings, maybe snuck it in here or there. But so ultimately it really just came from a clear need to have a resource for players for that component of their development. But yeah, and where it is now, I mean, I would say it's been weird with COVID for everybody. For us, I mean, I certainly can't complain because there are companies that have only had negative impacts. For Sports Lab, it was a big spike at first 5-6 months, because every club was like, all right, we need remote options.
Yep.
And yeah, so and then the last probably 5 or 6 months has been challenging from a club standpoint, because a lot of these clubs have, no money to spend unless it's like completely essential. So we've kind of not shifted away from clubs, but focused more and kind of invested more in individual subscriptions and, ultimately marketing to parents. And then obviously getting to their players through that. So that's kind of where things are at now. And actually you had connected me with Julio as United Soccer Coaches. And so that's kind of the next big thing we're looking at, is making it available to the Spanish speaking market. So that's kind of where it's at now. We have a good amount of content. We're in a good spot. And now it's kind of, we've expanded to a lot of English speaking countries, and now that's kind of the next progression, at least for us. So kind of been methodical and patient with growing it, rather than trying to take on an investment and go super big right away.
Yeah. what advice do you wish you would have received maybe right when you graduated college? So you're 80% through with Sports Lab 360, still not there for market ready, and you just graduated, so your goals are now starting to become more towards this project. What advice do you wish you would have received at that time that would have either helped you out a lot or made a failure not as bad, or helped you not fall asleep crying at night, whatever it is?
Are you ready to take your game to the next level? Trust the process and sign up for No Stress Midwest training today at www.nostressmidwest.com/training. No Stress Midwest primarily offers training for soccer players on the individual, group, and team settings of all ages and skill sets. Our training is customized for the player, and our goal in doing that is to continue to grow the love of the game, build a personal desire to want to develop, and create the chance and choice for the player to play at the next level. We have developed a unique solution here at No Stress Midwest Training, showing our clients that you can have fun while still getting better. By creating a unique training environment customized to the player, we feel that not only are we able to get the most out of the individual by creating a no-stress environment, but we are also teaching them fundamentals that they can carry off the field and apply in their everyday life. Visit our website at www.nostressmidwest.com/training and sign up for your first session today.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I mean, it's funny because if you would have asked like what advice based on what you did would you share, I would say like be patient as far as starting a business. Like the line between stubborn and delusion is very fine. And honestly, I would almost say the same thing to what you asked. I would have almost, I mean, because the way I went about it was, like I said, I graduated. And my brother, but like was not, didn't have a bunch of money to blow, was kind of living fairly uncomfortably. Um, I would say almost being even more patient and setting out maybe a little bit clearer of a timeline of, all right, I can allot this many hours per month, and that's going to get me to, this point where I can then have it be market ready, and kind of being as proactive about that as possible. I'd say that's like definitely one of my weaknesses just in general. And like with the business is having a clear, I'll put together a 1-2 year plan type of thing. But as far as anything further than that, I could certainly do a better job of kind of mapping things out. So I would say the same thing a couple years ago when we were about, 80% there, would be just have clear goals and, obviously be flexible to changing them, but have clear goals of where you want to be at what point, and make sure that those are tied into the next goal and the next goal, and things like that. So that's probably the biggest piece, on top of just being patient to the point of delusion. But ultimately, you never know if something's going to work out or not. So you kind of got to stick it out.
Yeah, I think that's something that it's tough. As I mean, myself, I'm going through that. Right, is like, man, I have an idea. Shoot, when we drove to Colorado last year, and me and my buddy pitched to you our tutoring service, right? How like
Yep.
I'm like, yo, I believe in this thing, and we went through a whole school year, and we had 0 clients. We had no one sign up for it. We had a few people like they were interested, but no one that jumped out. And I told him, I'm like, look, this year is the year. I was like, because I'm so confident in this that I don't care that it's not working yet. It's just not working yet. It's not that it won't work.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something as an entrepreneur you learn, whether it's the hard way or you're just born with patience, something I was not born with, is you can't take no for an answer and think that a no is like, that's it right there. It might just be a no for now, and
Yep.
just keep doing whatever it is you're doing, and then maybe in a year it's a yes. or 2 years it's a yes, or 6 months it's a yes. So
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think it's important too to, and it's somewhat of a cliche, but and I think somebody maybe 5 years ago who started a business, and this guy's doing Super Bowl now, and it's probably right when he started off. Was like viewing challenges as opportunities is like such a big thing. Like if there's, whether it's something tax related, something something that I'm still in no ways an expert, but 2 years ago I would have been completely lost in that entire category.
right.
Or anything that you're kind of getting thrown at you as you work through the business, journey of starting a business. And so just being open to those coming in, and maybe it's not something you're super interested in, but at the end of the day, if you're going to spend 10, 15, 20 hours on something, at least there is value in the process of learning something new and going through that challenge and coming out with some value from it. So that's something that has been helpful in just keeping motivation throughout. Because I don't know, I'm sure, I don't know if you've had some, it ebbs and it flows with the first 2 years of any business. It's like, boom, like I'm pumped about this. I'll do anything. And obviously it's still there, but compared to being in year 4 or 5, it's like, all right, there's a work life, and you're kind of working through those pieces as well. So I think that's something that also helped me kind of keep my foot on the gas.
Yeah, I think that's good. That quote, viewing obstacles as obstacles as opportunities,
Challenges as opportunities.
challenges as opportunities. Um, no, that's big, because I think a lot of the times we see, I always say there's two types of people, and then I proceed to give out how there's so many different types of people. but but
Michael Scott does that in his business seminar.
yeah, exactly. But I always say there's two types of people: ones that see a wall and in the middle of the road and stop and turn around, or ones that see the wall and look at it as, how can I get by it? How do I get through it? And I think it's, like I said, as an entrepreneur, you have to look at that as, how do I get through this wall? Because I didn't travel all the way here just to get turned around by a wall or by some bad weather. Enter whatever metaphor you want. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, so oh, my bad, go ahead.
No, it's all you.
All right. No, I was gonna say, so as we're getting ready to wrap up here, do you have any advice or any words, anything we didn't touch on that you maybe want to be sure to mention, or anything like that?
I mean, nothing here. Well, I guess before we forget, I'll throw because I will absolutely forget if I don't. For like any podcast people, if they're interested in it, we can do like a 20% off type of thing. I'll actually go make the the code now, but if we do all caps, no stress, keep it at that. That would be 20% off for Sports Lab for anybody who's interested. And then obviously, all my info is on the website and stuff. So if anybody wants to chat, whether it's about the platform or just anything, can find it all there. But I don't know, as far as adding stuff, from a entrepreneurial standpoint, nothing huge. I think maybe one thing that was kind of left out is just understanding where your talents are too is big, and knowing like, hey, if I'm not good at this, there are a lot of people who are, and whether you're paying them to help you or whether they're friends, and you can scratch their back and they scratch yours. Kind of understanding where your own weaknesses lie, and maybe you have time to develop them, maybe you don't right away, but leaning on other people to so that the sum of all parts is greater than them individually has been a big thing as well. But otherwise, yeah, that's all the wisdom I have to dish out.
All right. Well, Nick, thank you again for being a guest. Nick Manzoni is with SportsLab360, and they are creating modules just helping improve player IQ, showing them scenarios. So they've mapped it out in their head, and then once they get out on the field, it's something that they've already been able to associate with their brain because they've seen that same pattern before. I know sometimes you'll post stuff on the page, and I'll share it on the No Stress, and even on my personal one. And, you know, I've got a lot of players and former players that follow me, and I just like hearing what they think. And I'll tell you what, there's never like, there's every answer gets answered. So when you
Yep.
give A, B, C, or D, all of those are answers from people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of cool because I just ask them, well, why? Let me just hear your thought process. And not saying that someone's right or wrong, but just hearing how people see that and how they interpret it, and then asking yourself, well, is that a striker, or is that a center mid, or is that a defender, right? Because whatever position you play, your brain is wired differently to see different scenarios, I think.
Yeah, that's
So,
interesting. I've never really thought about that. It'd be interesting for a coach to go through and, you know, kind of white out the players' names and see if they can get a sense of
of what
which
player
quiz was taken by which player. Yeah, that's interesting.
that actually, hey, if you use that idea, you don't have to give me credit, but just
Oh, I'll give you credit.
but no, man, Nick, thank you for taking time out. Hopefully you can enjoy Seattle, make it out to a game or two out there. And cheers, mate. We'll chat soon. All right.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me on, bro. I appreciate it.
Yep. See ya.
Later.